Welcome, dear friends, to today's alternative English class. Today we shall discuss The Fight Between Leopards by Jim Corbett. Who this Jim Corbett was? Jim Corbett was a colonel in the British Indian Army. When the Britishers ruled over India, he was working for them. He was working in the British Army. He was a famous hunter as well as a writer. He killed many man-eating leopards in the Garhwal and Kumaon regions in the Himalayan ranges. So whenever these leopards left the jungle, entered the human habitation and killed people, his services were required by the local population, the local people, as well as the government. He was a very skillful hunter. He killed them in large numbers. So he has written a number of essays on his experiences with different leopards. In this particular essay, he writes about one leopard which was causing trouble to the people in the Rudraprayag area. Now let me discuss the background of this story with you. A man-eating leopard had been killing local people near Rudraprayag for 8 years. Corbett was invited. He was asked to do something to help the local people, to save the local people from the leopard. So Corbett reaches Venswara. Venswara is the name of the village, where the leopard had recently killed a boy. But as he waits to shoot the leopard at night, a fight takes place between that man-eating leopard and a local leopard. And he records his experiences of that fighting in this essay. Corbett reached the village in company with the headman. Headman accompanies him and takes him to the house where the child had been killed. Now, as he goes there, he hears a woman crying, grieving. Obviously, her son has been taken away and she has been crying. She was the mother of the victim. The victim was a boy who had been killed by this man-eater. The woman narrated to him the entire incident of the killing, how the leopard took away her son and how it killed him. She was angry with the men of the village. She accuses that the men of the village did not come to the rescue of her child. If they had come to his rescue, perhaps they could have saved the child from this leopard. She says, my husband was very brave before he was killed by another leopard. So had my husband been here, he would have saved my boy from the leopard. But Corbett says, madam, you are wrong. Corbett says, when the leopard clamped his teeth round the boy's throat, the leopard must have held the throat like this. And when he clamped it, when he held it very tightly, the teeth must have dislocated the head from the neck. This, something that connects the neck to the head, those connectors must have broken. So he must have died instantaneously. The boy must have died before the leopard carried him across the courtyard. Corbett finds the whole incident very surprising. Corbett is surprised. A leopard comes not at night, but in the middle of the day, carries away a child, not a small child, but a boy. But how nobody from the village marks this leopard? And when the leopards visit, dogs have a very strong sense of smell. So dogs must have barked. But how dogs even didn't bark? How didn't people of the village or dogs of the street mark him? He is surprised. Besides, the wall around the house, that house was some 8 foot high. So how that leopard jumped over so high a wall, how it entered the courtyard, how it held its victim, how it jumped over the wall once again, and how it escaped, and how everything went unnoticed. He's surprised to experience all these things himself. When he goes and marks the scene, examines the scene, he finds out how the leopard might have attacked the child. He finds all these things very surprising. Where had the leopard carried the boy? And how? This is very important. This might be one of the questions. The leopard jumped down the 8 foot wall guarding the house. All around the house, there was a 8 foot wall. So the leopard jumped over that wall, went to the courtyard, killed the boy. With the boy, it jumped over the wall. He dragged his body across a yam field. At the backyard, there was a yam field. Saru. Yam is saru. There was a field with yam plants growing. So he dragged him across that yam field. Then there was another wall. And this wall was even higher. This was 12 feet in height. So there was a 8 foot wall. Then there was a vacant space, not a vacant space, but where yam plants were growing. Beyond that, there was another wall, and that wall was 12 feet high. Beyond that, there was a field. He dragged the dead body across another field. And at the edge of this field, the second field, it came across a thick hedge of roses. Rose plants, a hedge of roses. They were very thick. So a rose plant गुड़ाक एमिति grow करुची, just a बहुत thick bush गुड़ाक. Rose bush you must have seen, they are very thick and they are very thorny also. He must have searched for a opening so that he could carry, because the leopard is carrying a dead body, and the dead body is not that of a child. Dead body is that of a boy. So obviously he must be looking for an opening, a hole through which it can carry the child, carry that boy. And this hedge was some 4 feet high. It released the hold on the body's throat, the boy's throat. It must have left him there. It went in search of some opening in the hedges, came back, again held the boy by the throat, picked up the victim, and jumped across the hedge. 4 feet wide hedge, and it jumps across with the victim in its mouth, carrying the victim. It crossed another wall, and this third wall was about 10 foot in height. On the far side of the field, on the other side of the field. On this side of the field, it was 12 feet. On the other, it was 10 feet. So there was a cattle track at the foot of the third wall. Usually when cattle walk for a long time, people walk for a long time, a footpath is formed. You must have seen that across the field also. Across a field, everywhere grass must have grown, but where people frequently walk, regularly walk, a track is formed where no grass grows. So there was a cattle track. Now, when it had reached the cattle track, people of the village came to learn that the boy had been carried away by a leopard. So gradually, people of the village started raising their voices, started giving the leopard a chase. They followed it. So it was compelled to, now that he saw people were shouting, people were following him, people had been accompanied with beating of drums. They were beating drums, they were firing, some of them had guns, so now they were firing guns. So the leopard dropped the dead body of the child there and ran away. So beating of the drums and the firing of guns prevented it from coming to the dead body that night. Why didn't Corbett wait for the leopard at the place where it had left the dead body? So this is the, this is the situation when Corbett reaches the village. The boy's dead body is lying there. It had happened the previous day. It had happened the previous day. So now Corbett is informed. Corbett goes there, examines the scenes and situations, makes his guesses what the leopard must have done and how it must have carried the dead body. Comes to a conclusion. Now the dead body is lying some distance away from the house. Now Corbett says, I could have done two things. I was sure that the leopard would come. The previous night, it was unable to come to the dead body. Because of the drum beating by people, and some people were also firing their guns. So it was sure to come after nightfall. So why didn't he decide to sit there? There were two difficulties for which he did not want to sit very close to the dead body. One was the absence of a suitable place to sit. It was a vast open area and the dead body was lying there somewhere. He could have sat on a tree, but there were no trees nearby. The nearest tree was about 100 yards away. Now, if you sit at a place which is 100 yards away with a gun in your hand, gun has a range. Besides, you must be able to see that leopard clearly so that you could shoot at it. And if the leopard came at night, how would you see it? You have to make some guesses from the sounds it made, from the noise that was produced. You have to, if it came at night, you have to make some guesses and shoot. So if you are sitting far away from the dead body, how can you shoot at the leopard? It was not a suitable place. Secondly, he was not confident about sitting on the ground with nothing to protect him. It was an open ground. So once you are sitting in an open ground, you expose yourself to a leopard attack because you don't know from where exactly it has gone and from which direction it is going to come. So even though you are having a gun in your hand, you are not very sure that if you come face to face with the leopard, you are going to use your gun properly. So he was not very confident about sitting on the ground with nothing to protect him. He reached the village late in the afternoon. He had a cup of tea. He heard the mother's story. He examined the scene, and all these things obviously took some time. So no time was left for the construction of a shelter. If he had constructed a shelter and sat on it close to the dead body, some meters away from the dead body, in that case, it would have been a very wise move. But there was no time for that. If, so if he sat on the ground, he would be exposed to the attack of the leopard. And he was not sure if he saw the leopard face to face or if the leopard attacked him from some direction, whether he would be able to use his rifle or not. So he changed his plan. Instead of waiting for the leopard at the place where the dead body was lying, he decided to do something. He decided to carry the dead body home. So he asked the headman to get him four things: a crowbar, sabala, a stout wooden peg. Wooden pegs are forced into the ground. जोठी तमे देखिथिबो गोटे खुंट पोता हेकरी गाई को बंधा हेताए गाँ मानकरे. So गोटे पोल, गोटे wooden pole, one side of that is pointed, so that is a wooden peg. Got a hammer and a dog chain, to which a dog is tied. So four things he asked the headman to bring him. Got a one crowbar, sabala, one stout, very strong wooden peg, a hammer, and a dog chain. With the crowbar, he dug a hole in the middle of the courtyard and drove, that hammered that peg into the earth and fastened or tied one end of the chain. He carried the dead body of the boy to the peg and chained it there. Now the dead body is chained to the peg. Dead body is lying in the middle of that courtyard. And it has been chained to the peg. With a chain, it has been tied to the peg. Peg is that, pole. He took a bundle of straw. He laid it on the veranda. Then he took another few bundles. He heaped it in front of him so that the leopard would not be able to see him hiding behind the bundles of straw, but he would be able to see it. He got the dead body of the boy to the peg and chained it there. He laid a bundle of straw on the veranda. He lay on the bundle and heaped a little straw, gathered a little straw. Heaping is gathering, putting on one another in front of him, so that he had a clear view of the leopard, but the leopard would not be able to see him. He had a clear view of the dead body and the tiger if it came, but he could hide himself quite well, because if the leopard saw him, leopards could see in the dark. But if the leopard saw him, it would run away or it might attack him. So he was sure that the leopard would surely come and take the dead body, carry the dead body. The dead body was lying there. Leopard had run away. So the leopard must come to carry the dead body from where it had left him. But it was not there anymore. Corbett had carried it to its house, and it was now lying in the courtyard. So when the leopard found that the dead body was missing, it would surely try to attack some other people and victimize somebody, kill somebody, and carry him away. Then there was a storm. What sort of an evening did the narrator have to face? Jim Corbett is the narrator. He says, by the time all these preparations had been made, it was dark. It was night. At about 8 in the evening, there was thunder and lightning, followed by rain. First there was thunder, there was lightning, and then there was rain. A storm raged for an hour. For about 1 hour, there was a storm. After the storm, what happened? Usually the sky is overcast. Patches of cloud can be seen in the sky. It's full of uh, patches of cloud. So now that the patches of cloud are there, visibility decreases. You can't see beyond a few meters, beyond a few inches from you or meters from you, 2 meters. You can't see what is up. One, it is night time. One, it's already dark. This is a village. This is a village which is surrounded by forests. So obviously it would be very dark. Secondly, there was a storm some time ago. There are patches of cloud in the sky. So obviously it's very dark. Then the narrator describes a very interesting incident that happened with him that terrified him. Something very interesting, but something that terrified him. He was lying on the straw. Suddenly, when he was waiting for the leopard to arrive and straining to hear some sound, he was careful, very careful, straining his ears to hear some sound. When the leopard comes, it doesn't make much of a noise. Its claws are padded, so it will come very carefully without making a noise. So he was straining his ears to hear some sound, very carefully watching, listening. Is there some sound? Is there any sound? He felt something at this time when he was waiting to hear some sound, some noise. He felt something creeping stealthily over the straw on which he was lying. Something was walking. Something was walking on that straw on which he was lying. And he could feel the hairy coat. Coat is the hair, skin with the hair of an animal brushing against his bare skin. There was an animal. He could feel its fur, its hair on the skin touching his body, touching his legs. So the narrator thought, my God, my days are going to end. I had come to kill the leopard, but I think the leopard is going to kill me. I think it must be a leopard. It must be the man-eater. It is creeping up until he could lean over and get a grip of my throat. So, with his legs hanging downwards, he was sitting on that straw heap. Something was brushing against his skin. So, he must be terrified because he is not able to see what animal this is, what it is. Right. So he must have felt extremely terrified. He thought it was the man-eater. And if it is the man-eater, I am going to die in an instant. The man-eater actually is trying to jump on me so that it could have a hold on my throat and it could squeeze my throat. Just when he was getting ready to press the trigger of the gun, a small animal jumped between his arms and his chest. And what animal it was? It was a cat. It was a kitten, small cat, kitten. It was soaking wet. It was completely wet because there was rain and thunder. Outside there was rain. There was a storm raging a few minutes ago. So it had become completely wet. And it was looking for some shelter. It was looking for warmth and protection. So it was not able to see the narrator lying there on that straw heap. So it had come closer. At this time, when he had got a fright, he was able to hear some sound, some distance away, of course, from where he was hiding. The narrator was able to hear a low growling sound coming from afar, some distance away from where he was sitting. He heard some noise was coming from growling sound. The tiger and the leopards growl. So growling noise was coming from a place some distance away. And this noise gradually grew louder and louder. What had happened? So he must have worried there. He must have become worried. What was this? What is happening? The man-eater had returned to the spot where he had left the kill. So the previous day he had left the kill, this boy's dead body, at a place. After the storm was over, after it had stopped raining, the man-eater came to that place. And it was searching for the dead body. When he was searching for the dead body, he came across another male leopard who looked upon this particular area as his hunting ground. Dogs, you must have seen dogs which live in your street. They don't allow other dogs to enter their area. Dogs urinate to mark their area, and they would not allow any other dog to enter that area. If dogs enter into their area, they bark loudly at it, and in a group they run after it. They give it a hot chase. So similarly, the same is the case with carnivores also. These animals, these jungle animals, especially those who those which hunt other animals for food, they don't allow animals of other areas to enter into their area. If other animals by chance enter into their area, there is a fight. Usually, a carnivore keeps to its own area, and when two males meet, the weaker one gives way to the stronger. I mean, he doesn't fight with the stronger, he goes away. The weaker one knows, no, I can't stand up to his strength, so let me go away. I'm not a match to him, so let me go away. So it runs away. But this time, the man-eater was big and powerful, no doubt. But it was a very powerful male in its own area. But here, what was his status? What was his position? He was a trespasser. Trespasser is one who enters into another's area without taking permission. So here, in this case, he was a trespasser, and he was a stranger. He was not a local. He was not a leopard acquainted with this area, frequently seen in this area. And the local leopard, he was the local dada. So he was just like the local dada. So local dada, this is my area. Sorry chap, you can't come here. Sorry mate, you can't come here. So that was the case. And obviously, the man-eater had to fight for its life. Why had now there can be a question. When the narrator heard the noise of their fight and their growling noise, he knew now it would not be possible for him to kill the tiger. Why had this narrator's chance of killing the tiger thinned or become less? Because of two, three things. One, suppose the man-eater succeeds in the battle. If he becomes successful, man-eater is successful. He shows that he has more power. He is able to defeat the local leopard in the battle. But it must have received injuries. And when it has injured itself in a fight, it will no more be interested in the food or the body which it had left the previous night. So this should prevent him from taking interest in the kill. He would no more be interested in the killing or in the kill, the dead body which it had left. And there was another possibility. Suppose the two leopards fought with each other very fiercely, savagely. The man-eater could be killed in the process. So if the man-eater was killed in the process, how could the writer kill it once again? So the fight could end fatally. Fatally means bringing death. Fatally for the man-eater. Then the narrator says, from a distance, of course, he hears the many rounds of fighting that goes on between the man-eating leopard and the local leopard, man-eater leopard. The first round lasted for barely only for 5 minutes, and they were still very fresh. Lot of energy was there, so the two animals fought very bravely, very strongly, very courageously. They were full of energy. After then, there was a period of silence. After 10 or 15 minutes, the second round started. This time, the sound came from a place which was some distance away from the place where it had started. जहां से शुरू हुआ था वहां से कुछ दूरी के बाद. तो what does it show? That this local leopard has been able to drive away the man-eater some distance away from its own area. It has driven him, I mean, he has proved to be more powerful than the man-eater. So that is what the writer notes here. He says the local leopard was able to drive the man-eater some distance away from his territory. And now, after some time, the third round started. And it was a very short round. And by then, their energy had waned, WANED, decreased. They were left with less energy. So the intensity of the fight was obviously less. Intensity of the fight during the first round was more because they were full of energy. Then after you have fought for some time, that energy decreases. So when the third round started, the energy had decreased. So the intensity of the fight decreased. When the fourth round resumed, the sound came from the shoulder of the hill, the writer says, so far away from the original place. So the writer comes to the conclusion that the main man-eater leopard has been driven away from that area because now the sound comes from the hill, distant hill. The narrator finally says, I lost a chance to kill the leopard. One thing he is certain, that the man-eater was not killed in the encounter. There was an encounter. The local leopard had fought with it. But the man-eater was not killed in the encounter because he could hear the noise. He could hear the roaring sound coming from a distance, growling sound coming from a distance, from the hills. It's roaring. Why does he say? Why does he say that the man-eater leopard was not killed? Because its roaring could be heard even after 4 rounds of fighting. But there was one possibility. The possibility was that he must have been badly injured. He must have given a fight. He must have fought with the local leopard, and in the process, he must have received injuries. अगर ये मर गया होता तो the chance of its entering into human habitation once again and killing people, that must have ended there. But it was only injured. After a few days, it will recover from the injuries. Once it recovers from the injuries, it will once again enter the human habitation. it will once again start killing people. So the writer says, since he was not dead, he was expected to come again to meet his craving for human flesh. It had a great desire to eat human, great liking to eat human flesh. Therefore, it was attacking human beings and carrying them away. So, after a few days, it would certainly come and kill human beings once again. So, my dear friends, I hope this helps you. The question would be like this. If there is a long question, it would be like this. Describe the encounter that the man-eater leopard had with the local leopard. This will be one long question. Short questions I have already discussed with you. Thank you very much. Have a good day.